This is the one with seaweed wraps, men with gas problems, and a climactic bubble bath. It's called Fury from the Deep. Here we go.
We're embarking on a voyage all through time and all through space,
countering Daleks, Thal and Ood, and the Cybertronic race.
Sontarans look like taters, and Silurians all have wonky scales.
And the Doctor has a TARDIS, we're reviewing all his tales. Who back when? Reviewing all of who there is. Who back when?
Subscribe and rate on iTunes, please.
Episode by episode, we're trudging down this temporal road. Come join us on this odyssey. What other choice could there be than Who back when?
Who back when?
Hello and welcome to episode C042 of Who Back When, a Doctor Who podcast, or Docpast. I am Ponkin. Yes, I am. And joining me in the studio today is no one. That's right, I am recording another solo mission. The reason for that, why am I not pre-recorded these things? So, as you may or may not know, lots of Doctor Who serials went missing, have gone missing, have not yet been retrieved in the BBC archives or abroad, wherever. And as it's kind of a slog to go through those missing episodes, the recons thereof, or going through lots of audiobooks and comparing them to stories and so on and so forth, I'm doing them on my own. That means, consequently, that if you're not in the mood for a soliloquy, you probably shouldn't be listening to this episode. Most of the time, Who Back When indulges in dialogues. I normally sit down with one or two of my co-hosts and we discuss and debate and rate a Doctor Who serial or episode together. In this case, it's just me, so you're in for a monologue if you're still around. Today I will be looking at Fury from the Deep. It is a Troughton serial, a 6-episode one, and every single one of those episodes is missing. And it's such a goddamn shame because it's a very, very cool serial. I'm going to say that right off the bat, even though, holy smokes, the pacing is utter garbage. However, some scenes have survived in some way or another. I'm actually going to embed a few clips on whobackwhen.com. You can just have a look on Dailymotion or on YouTube, or just Google this yourselves, and you'll find there are some clips. And here's the thing: I'm in a little bit of a rush, so I haven't actually seen those clips myself. All the clips that I've seen that have survived are the ones that are embedded in the Loose Cannon Productions reconstruction. That recon is fucking amazeballs. You have to watch it. It is totally worth it. I know there's an audiobook. I've listened to about half an hour of it, but again, did I mention I'm kind of stressed? Yeah, I haven't listened to all of it. But I have watched the recon, so that's what I'm going to be reviewing today. Here's the reason I'm stressed, and also I'm going to say this by means of apologizing. Sorry, this episode of Who Back When is slightly delayed. It was meant to be released yesterday, Sunday. It is instead going to be released today, Monday, meaning I am recording, I'm editing, and I'm dropping it tonight. B, or 2, I can't remember if I said 1 or A before, whatever. The second thing is, you may have been expecting to hear a new Who review, namely that of Human Nature, the Tennant episode, part 1 of Human Nature, part 2 being Family of Blood. Alas, with holidays and myriad birthdays, it seems everyone has a birthday in either June or July. It turns out we couldn't sit down and record it, so hence I'm sitting down and kind of stressfully hammering this one together. I trust you'll enjoy it nonetheless. Yeah? Excellent. Let's have an improvised B-scow. That's a bite-sized chunk of Who.
Bite-sized chunk.
Doc, Jamie, and Victoria arrive in the middle of the ocean, or the sea. I'm not entirely sure where they are. Actually, they must be just off Dover because there are white cliffs in the background. And they actually land on water. This is already, right off the bat, clearly going to be an aquatic episode, or a water-centric one. Nearby is a gas processing plant, something along those lines. And in the pipes running into and out of and through the compound, you can hear what sounds like kind of a heartbeat. And at the same time, seaweed seems to have gotten into those pipes. This is a terrible improvised B-scow, but you get the point. Seaweed has somehow entered the pipes. Who better to clean those pipes than the Doctor? Guess what? Seaweed is alive. Holy shit, we've got another plant monster thingy. Basically, it's kind of a rehash of the Varga plants that we had before, or the crinoids that are going to come later on. We have plants that are completely sentient, they're hell-bent on world domination, and if they bite you, or they sting you, or they touch you in some way or another, they'll turn you into one of their own. B-scow over, you are Welcome! Let's jump straight into this, shall we? So, episode 1, as I said, we start off with about 5 seconds of actual footage, to be honest. It's of the TARDIS coming in for a landing on the ocean, and, god damn it, my very first note is already incorrect. I've said, and sinking below the surface. But that's not entirely true. In the audiobook, it actually does say that it's floating on the surface. Done. That's it. Henceforth, it's all caption stills and audio, at least for a while. Good audio, though, I'll say that. Blam! Cut to Doc, Jamie and Victoria rowing ashore in an inflatable dinghy, and immediately half the audience, whichever half is regarding the serial with an ounce of scrutiny, goes, what the actual dick? Why didn't they just rematerialize on land? How did they exit the TARDIS without flooding it? As far as I'm aware, there's not an airlock in the TARDIS or anything like that. And I don't think the concept of a force field has been established on the show yet, but I suppose you could argue that that's been retconned by now. Yeah, let's say that. Still, they didn't drown en route. As I said, the audiobook clearly explains that they're floating, so it should be fine. Anyway, they gather that they've materialized in, wait for it, England! Quelle surprise, and we get this lovely introductory nugget of a soundbite.
You always seem to land on this planet.
No, it's always England.
Enough said. I'm going to speed through this one. So the Doc goes and inspects some sea foam on the beach. They all agree it's very unusual, and then Doc literally just scoops some of it up in his hands and cream pies Jamie with it. As in, he gives him a facial. Comedy cream pie, porn facial. Yeah? Sorry. I'm responding to an audience reaction. Miriam was sitting in the audience and just suddenly looked up at me. Yeah. Anyway, so cream pies and facials, these are false friends, you understand what I'm saying. Jamie looks like he's been through a bukkake gauntlet, is what I'm trying to explain. How can this seem safe to them, though? What if it's radioactive or like alien jizz and they're all pregnant now? Anyway, so what follows is a foam fight, and it's ridiculous, especially with what's gonna come up later on in the serial. But then all of a sudden, Jamie spots what looks like a sewage pipe, and off they go to inspect it. It says Euro C gas, and on this pipe they find a control box. And as Troughton can't open it with his hands, he whips out a very special something, a gizmo that we'll come to know and love, a gadget so important to his character. It's frankly baffling we haven't seen it before, but holy smokes, behold my erection, podcast land. This is it, the very first time.
What's that? It's a sonic screwdriver. Never fails. There we are. Neat, isn't it? All done by sound waves.
Holy shit! The Doc just popped his sonic cherry. Okay, so he peeks inside the box. Before he can tell us what's inside, we hear a rumbling, and Doc pops a stethoscope on the pipe. Meanwhile, someone's spying on them on some retro-futuristic CCTV and aiming a crosshair on the Doc. Shazam! Doc's been shot in the shoulder and collapses on the ground. Blam blam! Jamie and Victoria go down as well. Fade 2... The three travelers coming to on the floor of a futuristic control room, unable to move, but fully conscious. Two dudes with bell-end helmets, Herman Gelmets, have them at gunpoint, just in case they hadn't ketamined the gang to the hilt. And the set is pretty badass. Lots of TV sets and levers all over the place. But best of all, there's a huge pipe running along the ceiling, upon which they've written, pipeline. Classic. Some sort of controller dude pops up and wants answers. Not just answers, but many answers.
I should expect quite a lot of answers.
It seems to me that he wants more answers than he's prepared to ask questions. Makes very little sense to me, but perhaps they speak in shorthand in the year. When's its face? Technicians and lab coats feed them something called U4 gas, which I think is meant to fully resuscitate them, which, again, not sure why they'd want that. Maybe ask them more questions first. Also, Oxonian tangent, the U4 is a bus around here in Oxford that in my experience is literally, not figuratively, always late. So take that, Oxford Transport. You just got owned on Who Back When. Back to the show. One of the dudes, the controller, Robson, who looks like English Mitt Romney, accuses them of being saboteurs because of the whole sonic boner thing before. Fair enough, Mitt. Fair enough. We also meet a couple more gas geeks. One of them is Harris, who, and this all seems slightly convoluted. I at first thought he looked like English Norman Bates, and by that I'm saying I thought he was an Anthony Perkins lookalike because the Vince Vaughn remake was unnecessary garbage, and I haven't watched the Bates Motel series yet. And I don't remember what's his face in it looks like. Ugh, ending on a preposition. But then we get a full frontal shot of his face, and he looks nothing like Anthony Perkins. In some telesnaps, he looks a lot like Lieutenant Jim Dangle. So now in my notes, I've already referred to him as Norman Bates. But Lieutenant Dangle is a way better name, I realize now. So if at any point I accidentally call him Norman, you know why, and I apologize in advance. So, okay, I'm digressing. All Silver Temples, Mitt Romney tells Lieutenant Dangle,
"Well, I want your opinion, Harris. I'll ask for it."
Let's put a pin in that for later. And then he orders the travelers to be locked up for further interrogation when he has more time later on, and leaves them in the care of Lieutenant Dangle, who, ASAP, effing pronto, gives them the full plot preamble. Like, just to catch them up, tells them everything they, and we, need to know about what's going on. I think this is partly another case of something we've discussed on the show before, namely the, who are you? How did you get here? Also, have a look at these secret blueprints. Would you like some tea? But it's also something else, which I'm not sure if we ought to be tracking on who back when, id est the expository Englishman, full exposition through perfectly superfluous soliloquy rather than by means of investigation. It's kind of a lazy option. But anyway, it works. What he says is basically that 2 of their offshore drilling rigs aren't responding to hails, so everyone's a bit antsy. Whatevs. We get that Lieutenant Dangle is a total nice guy, as he reluctantly locks up the gang. Cut to Mrs. Jim Dangle, Maggie Harris, I'm going to call her Madge, who looks like a black and white real-life version of Patty and or Selma Bouvier. Let's go with Selma, better name, but, she's hot and milfy. Suspiciously entering and exiting the compound and being asked at the gates why she doesn't have a hall pass from Mitt Romney. Anyway, she's not allowed in. I'm guessing that'll factor in later. No. Will not factor in later. And also, let's put a pin in that. Actually, you know what? Let's not put a pin in that, because her whole exiting and re-entering, or attempting to exit and re-enter, doesn't pan out at all. As far as I'm aware, we never find out why she surreptitiously tried to escape the compound. No reason whatsoever. Anyway, kablamo! Doc's telling Dangle that he heard something inside the pipes and he reckons there's some kind of marine life inside it, but Dangle says Mitt Romney will never authorize a shutdown to investigate, so best just not give a wank. A chap named Carney responds from Rig D and, suspiciously zen, while holding his head like he's being, say, I don't know, brainwashed by an alien force, says everything is under control and not to worry. Lieutenant Dangle now speaks with Mitt Romney and tries to convince him to turn off the pipeline after all, which obviously doesn't work, but while he does that, we see a folder of, one assumes, important/top secret pipeline paperwork, and, dum-dum-dum, a white-gloved hand grabbing it and pulling it off screen. Marvelous. Why the glove? Is someone going to find the papers later on and check them for fingerprints? Is the person stealing this folder completely bland and inconspicuous looking except for his or her hands? Like, officer, I couldn't tell you a single detail about the unmasked, fully visible person I saw robbing the place, but I can tell you that his or her left hand was a shit-covered pair of keys and his or her right hand was shaped like a teapot. Or is this person actually sneaking around the office unnoticed, sporting a head-to-toe body glove? That might explain it. Ugh. Clearly this glove is for our benefit, not the plot's, but it does actually turn out his hands are all manky. I'll get to that later on. The file is of significance, though. As Mitt Romney goes, well, show me your paperwork and I might reconsider. And Lieutenant Dangle now obviously can't find his paperwork, so I guess screw you, Lieutenant Dangle. And to top it all off, we see some hostility in the workplace as Mitt Romney literally says,
"You better have something more than a high-flown theory, because if you haven't, I'm going to take you and chop you up in little pieces and throw you back to your crummy little university. All right?"
Cut to Doc and Jamie trying to escape their cell while Victoria claims to be able to unlock the door with a hairpin. Where the shit did you get those skills, Victoria? And why did you not use them in the, Evil of the Daleks, when the dustbins held you hostage? Spoilers for Evil of the Daleks, by the way. Turns out they all break out at the same time, but individually, because just as Jamie gets out of the cell, Victoria jimmies the door. Ugh, yada yada yada. Yeah, right. Blam! Marge Simpson's sister, Selma Bouvier, i.e. Mrs. Jim Dangle, has been asked by her husband to go fetch the file, so we get to see inside of the living quarters. And I shit you not, they must be alcoholics. There are like 1 million glasses and wine and booze bottles lying around the place. I mean, it's nice, and I'm not going to judge, but, still, it's fun. Actually, I'm exaggerating. We see 3 shots of the place, and in one, they're alcoholics. In another, they're art enthusiasts, because there's futuristic art on the walls. And in the third shot, I believe in the living room, I'm not sure, but whatever. There, they have not 1, but two television sets next to each other, and what looks like a life-size statue of a half-naked, muscular black man looking straight at them, which is a little odd. I mean, who has two TVs next to each other? Yeah, that wasn't very funny. Anyway, you get the point. She finds the file, so I'm guessing at this point that she didn't take it earlier, right? That's a fair assumption on the part of the audience. True one as well. But there's some seaweed inside it turns out, which stings her. She throws it out the window, and shazam, unbeknownst to her, it starts to glow and pulsate outside. Cut to something that genuinely no one will ever say. Thankfully, Mitt Romney is in talks with the representative of the Dutch government. Never say that. His name is Van Lutyens. Let's call him Mr. Van der Vleuger for no other reason than that Die Hard with a Vengeance is a great movie and Jeremy Irons is the boss. Not sure what Mr. Van der Vleuger wants, but he isn't getting it from Mitt Romney, who instead, remember that pin, says...
Let's get one thing straight, my friend. When I need your advice, I'll ask for it. Nice.
Catchphrase. Oh yeah, he wants to give the rig crew a break to raise morale. That's what it is. Anyway, we now learn from the chief at one of the rigs that they also heard something inside the pipes, something that sounded like a heartbeat. Kablamatron. Let's get to the end of the episode. I'm spending way too much time on details here. Selma Bouvier-Dangle feels a little poorly because of the seaweed and calls the control room, introducing herself as Maggie, quote, Married Block 420. What the shit is that about? Is that her address? In which case, do married people live in specific blocks? Like, have they relegated single people to some other place so that maybe they can hook up? I don't know. Or is she maybe preempting sexual advances from the chap who's picked up the video call, seen her sweet milfy curves, and now undoubtedly wants to bone down with her, suggesting he forget all such thoughts of naughtiness because she's spoken for? Or is that her serial number? Like, is she a Stepford wife and the barcode on the back of her neck spells out Married Block 420? Bloody weird. Anyway, Lieutenant Dangle heads off to take care of her, and we cut to some white-gloved bald dude opening oxygen cylinders and, one assumes, wasting precious resources. But then Victoria pops into the oxygen storeroom because apparently she and the lads decided to split up in our absence, and it turns out too much oxygen in the room is super bad for you because now Victoria's coughing up a lung. Blam! The gloved man locks her in. Not a prob, she gets a hairpin out again. Then he opens a ventilator, not sure if that's good or bad. Oh, it transpires it's bad, because now foam is pouring in through the ventilator. What? How does that work? Never mind. It's bloody scary. It might be poisonous. Yeah, probably is. Thank goodness she didn't attend a fucking foam party in the opening scene of this serial. Oh yeah, that's right, she did. Well, shame she doesn't have access to oxygen, so she, could maybe construct some sort of rudimentary gas mask or breathing apparatus. But she's in the oxygen storeroom. Well, she should be in no danger, except she is, and is screaming for help now. Meanwhile, Doc and Jamie are checking out an impeller, which Doc explains is a gas pump. Thank you, Doc, I had no idea. Truthfully, I had no idea. And a bunch of other pipeline equipment, including a transparent bit, which Doc explains is to check condensation and anything else that might get inside the pipes. Whoa. I wonder if we're going to see something with a heartbeat in that transparent bit. They hear Vic now and race to her rescue. We get some awesome music. She screams in despair. End of episode 1. Episode 2. Doc and Jamie rescue Victoria, and now the gas geeks are there too. Victoria exhibiting run-of-the-mill Victorian lady hysterics.
The girl's hysterical.
She explains that she saw a monster covered in seaweed and lots of foam in the room, hence the scream, but it looks like it's gone. It also turns out that the tanks were not full of oxygen, but rather some sort of poison. No wonder she was coughing before. Cut to Selma Bouvier and Lieutenant Dangle. She's acting as though she's super stoned. She tells him about the seaweed and he wants to help, but then she screams again and we get to see and hear all this gloopy, gross, pulsating foam on their patio. Weirdly, the recon caption here says that this is happening unbeknownst to them, so why she's screaming, I'm not sure. Makes no sense. Dangle pops off to fetch either a or the doctor. And in the meantime, Mrs. Dangle, i.e. Selma Bouvier, considers throwing herself into the foam on the patio, but decides against it in the end. So yeah, very exciting. Blam! Doc, who, need I remind anyone, escaped custody not too long ago and is totes my lord's trespassing, is now pretty much part of the gang, without his authority, expertise, or indeed presence being questioned. Mr. Van der Vleuger believes the shit out of Doc's heartbeat theory too, so that's all good. Cut to Victoria and Jamie, also recently incarcerated and subsequently escaped from justice, now being given the grand tour of the place. There's also a light sensor grid, not entirely unlike the tube map with fungus sensors we saw in the last serial, Web of Fear. Great serial, by the way, please watch that. Amazing one. Totally intact. Well, most of it. All but one episode. I'm digressing. Ugh, balls. Here's something I meant to say before. I added this bullet point for episode 2, thinking, oh yeah, I'm sure I'll remember to mention this on the prior occasions, but nope, I didn't. Here's what I should have said before. We have, I think, 3 or 4 scenes in which Lieutenant Dangle comes to Mitt Romney and says something like, I want this, and Mitt Romney goes, you can't have it, and Dangle counters with, but it's important. And Romney folds and goes, alright, you can have it, but only for a little bit. Same shtick each time. Dangle wanted to show him the papers, Romney went, no, I'm the boss. Dangle said, but I'm an expert. Romney said, well, okay, show him to me. Then Mrs. Dangle fell ill and Dangle went, I want to see my wife. Romney went, no, I'm the boss. Dangle said, but she's ill. And Romney said, alright, you can go see her, but come right back. This time, Dangle goes, I need the doctor to see my wife. Mitt Romney goes, no, I'm the boss, they're my prisoners and will remain in my custody, in brackets, by which I mean they're free to leave their cell whenever they like and seemingly tamper with equipment and openly disagree with me, and instead side with Mr. Vanderfluger, and I'll be fine with it, close brackets. And Dangle goes, but she's ill, and Mitt Romney goes, yeah, okay, go on then. So off Doc goes with Lieutenant Dangle. Meanwhile, the 2 creepiest mechanics with an obvious hidden agenda ever pay a visit to Mrs. Selma Bouvier Dangle, introducing themselves as Mr. Oak and Mr. Quill. Mr. Oak, by the way, who looks like a cheerful old chap and speaks like he probably has an ice cream truck for all the wrong reasons, and Mr. Quill, who looks like he's been fashioned from bits of other people and resurrected from the death. A Frankensteinian creation is what I'm trying to say. Actually, you know whom they remind me of? Those 2 assassins in Diamonds Are Forever. Mr. Mr. whatever. Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd. That's it. Boom. Nicknames. Done. Anyway, we see that one of them, take your pick, is wearing white gloves. Dum dum dum. Wait, hang on. Was that the first anyway of this review? What? I think it might have been. Now, Cell 5. Boom! We learn that there's a pressure build-up in the pipeline and get this nugget of a soundbite.
You blow yourself wide open.
Hot! Oak and Quill, that's Wint and Kids, are still pretending to examine her flat while she's reapplying her makeup in the adjacent room, and we see that one of them, the chubby one, is developing a plant-like coating on his hands, and now puts on white gloves to conceal it. He seems happy about it though, so one assumes whatever is mutating him has already taken over his mind, right? That makes sense. And yeah, I think this is where we can pretty reasonably make a comparison with the Varga plants that we encountered in Mission to the Unknown and Dalek's Master Plan, and the Crinoids, which on Who Back When we've only encountered once, as far as I recall, on in an audiobook called Hot House, but later on in Classic Who we're going to encounter them in Seeds of Doom, possibly other episodes, I'm not entirely sure. Either way, I mean, it's the same concept. You have a plant, it has some sort of toxin or whatever. If you get stung by it, with the Varga plants, they have like these needles, crinoids. They somehow, I can't remember what they do. They take you up, I can't remember. Anyway, if you get infected by it, you eventually turn into one of them, right? And it's body horror is basically what it is. And essentially what I'm saying is, and JD, if you're listening to this, I apologize. Basically what I'm saying is, this is the kind of cereal that JD would hate. Anyway, kablamo. Let's carry on. Super creepy scene coming up, and it's actually intact. Watch and be horrified. The 2 dudes enter her boudoir, and with eyes and mouths agape, appear to fill the room with some sort of gas that eventually knocks her out. Guessing it's the same gas as in the oxygen tanks. Bloody scary. Apparently this scene was cut from foreign broadcasts because it was so creepy, and I don't blame them. And actually, you know what? I suspect that that's really the reason we have this scene in the first place. So thank goodness for, people being prudes. One might ask why they conducted the mock exam of her quarters in the first place, because that makes no sense. Alright, I'm gonna bullet point it now. Blam! Doc and his companions arrive at Married Block 402, aka Dangle Plaza, and smell gas. So Jamie Steven Seagal's a window with a chair like an unmistakable badass to let some air in. Shazam! There's some seaweed on the floor. By the way, where's all the foam? That's all gone. No matter. And Victoria says that it's moving, the seaweed that is. No time for explanations, back to the gas geeks. Boom! The gas pressure issue has been resolved, but now another rig is not responding, and the impeller just stops working all of a sudden because something is blocking it. We hear the heartbeat start back up again, and after about 5 minutes of Vanderfluger, Mitt Romney, and the Chief, whom I may not have mentioned hitherto, but who looks remarkably like what's-his-face in the Captain America films, Dr. Arnim Zola. The one who's, what's his name? Toby Jones. After about 5 minutes of them arguing about it, we end on Vanderbeek, much better than Vanderfluger, Vanderbeek, saying something's alive down there in the darkness, in the pipes. Yeah? End of episode 2. Episode 3. Selma, still in a coma, is starting to turn into seaweed now as well, but Doc and co do not notice because they don't give a shit and that's just how they roll. And instead they say they'll take the seaweed sample they found on the floor back to the TARDIS. But how the hell could they? We saw in the beginning that Mrs. Dangle couldn't come and go as she pleased, and surely, as known fugitives from the law, they wouldn't be easily, able to exit, row back to the TARDIS, potentially dive down, and then do the whole spiel in reverse without notice. Doesn't matter, they do. We get about 5 minutes of Mitt Romney shouting at Lieutenant Dangle and at James Van Der Beek, and vice versa, because the pump's still blocked, and then it unblocks itself. They shout about that for a while, and then it blocks up again, yada yada. So, good use of screen time there, guys. Gold stars all around. Not importantly, but funnily, Romney F's off and Dangle is about to see to his wife when Van Der Beek goes, "I don't give a shit about your wife, yeah?"
She's in good hands, yeah? She'll be brought into the Medicare unit. What can you do?
And orders him to stick around. I love that that's how you signify that a character was Dutch in the late 60s, by the way, by sticking a "ja" at the end of declarative sentences. And it works very well, in fact. Equally unimportantly, Van Der Beek now explains what his role is. He says he's there to provide, quote, technical advice, which is why he knows so much about the pumps, etc. But then he goes on to say that he advises on what Romney doesn't know, and what he doesn't know is the, quote, state of mind of the rig workers. So, from one line to the next, he's gone from gas mining technician to social worker. Anyway, fuck. Second anyway? I have a feeling I've said anyway a bunch here. Anyway, see what you made me do, James Van Der Beek? Anyway, god damn it. Ugh. He wants to evacuate the rigs, and with good reason. One rig went incommunicado at the start, stayed incommunicado for ages, then popped back online to say, "It's all good, don't come here, nothing suspicious going on, just stay away please," and then went incommunicado again. And another 2 rigs are also unreachable now, and the gas geeks maintain that maybe their Skype's just down. What the F? How insipid are these gas geeks? So now, out of nowhere, Mitt Romney loses his mind, thinking everyone's just out to get him, or maybe his job, who knows. This is getting a little tiring, to be honest. Ugh, let's go back to the TARDIS. The team, what are they doing there? The team is nearly attacked by a seaweed sample. So they brought the sample there, blah, 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 blah. They've done something to it. It's increased in mass, and now it's nearly attacked them. They also establish that it inhales natural gas and exhales poisonous gas. Bingo bongo. Victoria screams like the massive wuss that she is, and the seaweed tendril retreats into its terrarium. Aquarium? Aquarium. Yeah, aquarium. So now we're thinking maybe loud noises or annoying girls are its kryptonite. Gonna speed up again now. White-gloved honcho approaches Romney's quarters as he's resting in there, turns on vent, poisonous gas flows in. Shit, I'm sorry. I was literally reading off my bullet point there. Hence the lack of, subjects. Anyway, so then Dangle turns up just in time to see Mitt Romney going totes malotes bonkers, and ta-da, a creature stirring inside the vent, whom we don't see, unfortunately, because the footage is mega uber lost. Cut to Shay Dangle, Doc & Co. B&E into it, and find the place full of foam and creepy weed tendrils within the foam trying to pull them in. An action sequence ensues. Very exciting, but they get out of there alive, surprise, surprise. Kablamo! Doc appears and tells everyone about the seaweed. Then he asks Dangle how his wife is doing, and Dangle goes, "Oh yeah, that's right, I'm married," and bolts. And we cut to the end of the episode in which Selma Bouvier Dangle and Mitt Romney stand on the beach, confirming that he'll obey orders, whatever that means, and then she just walks into the sea and disappears. It is shitting creepy. End of episode 3, episode 4. I'm really speeding through this one. Alright, I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna drop an episode tonight. I am determined. Episode 4! None of the rigs out there are picking up on Skype now, and people are getting worried. Doesn't stop them from asking whether someone's on Skype, slowly checking, then confirming that, nope, they're still not on Skype. Yawn. Appropriately, the recon captions this scene with, quote, "The technicians are nearly falling asleep from exhaustion and boredom." Yeah, sign me up for the former, because I have the latter in spades over here. Thank you very much, Fury of the Deep. From the deep? From the deep. Sorry. I mean, even though I really like this serial, the pacing is redonkulous. I'll get to that later on when I, deliver my rating. Let's cut to Victoria, in what looks like a hostel, bunk beds, etc. There's a screenshot on whobackwhen.com, because in the background are no less than 6 cut out babes in bikinis. I mean, just straight up Sports Illustrated models. And man oh man, does Victoria look like a square next to them. This is the scene that establishes that Victoria has had her fill of these adventures, though, so it is worth mentioning. She's had her fill because, you know, she's a boring, whiny Victorian snob who thinks seaweed monsters and time travelling are extracurricular activities best left to the common plebs like Jamie.
Doctor will work something out, always does.
Yes. What then?
What do you mean, what then?
Where will we be next?
Now, Victoria, you're no better than to ask a question like that. We never know where we're going to land one place to the next. It's half the fun, isn't it?
Is it?
She also says,
There's so many questions.
subject-verb disagreement, Victoria. For shame. Kablamo. James Van Der Beek is going to go down and inspect the base of the shaft. That is to say, he actually takes a lift down to see what's blocking the impeller. Actual existing footage alerts as James Van Der Beek is attacked by both foam and seaweed. Creepy as balls. Screams, mayhem, terror. Victoria actually soils herself. And then Doc and Jamie go in after him because they don't weep at the first sign of danger, unlike someone else I know. Then all of a sudden the foam reappears, we get actual footage again before we cut away. Oh yeah, and they try to take the lift back up, but it's being controlled by Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd, so no dice, home slice. Whatever, they escape nonetheless. Enter stage left, Ms. Jones, a strong female character who's there to replace Mitt Romney and Lieutenant Dangle and remind us that Victoria is a stereotypical half-wit remnant from the past. She orders choppers to pop across and check out the rigs, and they find them totes covered in foam and seaweed. We even finally get a Skype call from one of the rigs, and shit is hitting the fan over there. Boom! Over to Victoria and Jamie, where Victoria somehow lost consciousness. Jamie is his 743rd save the cat moment by giving a damn, and then she wakes up only to cement what she hinted at before.
Oh, Jamie, why are we always getting into trouble like this? It's the same everywhere we go.
How do you mean?
I don't know. I'm just fed up. I'm tired of one crisis on top of another. Just want some peace and quiet.
Sad boom. Cut to Doc explaining the evil plot to Miss Jones.
All rig gone. We can draw only one conclusion. The weed is trying to take over all the rigs and form one vast colony.
With what objective?
The saturation of the British Islands and perhaps in time the entire planet.
Such a thing possible.
Oh, yes. Unless we can find the nerve center and destroy it.
And the end of the episode on, quote, the advance guard, in brackets, a bunch of seaweed, invading the base and starting, again, quote, the Battle of the Giants. End of episode 4, episode 5. Blam blam blam, Doc deduces two things, because otherwise it just wouldn't be a Who Back When episode, methinks. That the weed, A, has taken over key personnel at the base, and B, that the weed's kryptonite is in fact oxygen. Who's listening in but Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd? So, they sneak off to the oxygen storeroom. Ugh. I'm going to speed up through this ep. Bullet point time. Shazam! We spend several minutes on Ms. Jones not getting any sense out of Mitt Romney, and as soon as she leaves his quarters, he's back to taking orders from the vent. Then exits as well, and when we get some actual footage as he Jason Statham's the armed guard at his doorstep with a hand made out of weeds. This dude is being Varga planted. It is crazy. Crack! We get an action scene in which VJ battle it out with Mr. Kidd and Mr. Wint, and because of Victoria, who at this point effing obviously is going to leave the show, has to do something heroic, she screams like a damsel in distress, and as before, the loud noise KOs Mr. Kidd and or Mr. Wint. Barf! Foam fills the whole control room. Blam! Mitt Romney kidnaps Victoria and drives off with her in a car. Ta-da! We get some of the best music ever. It's like John Carpenter inhaled a bunch of helium and then hummed his take on the Muppets theme. Okay, so Mitt Romney is now in a chopper with Victoria, and he's got weeds growing out of his knuckles and his collar. He looks like the Scarecrow from Oz. And Doc and Jamie grab another helicopter and race after him in hot pursuit. Obvi, they're not flying it. There's a pilot on board. Funnily enough, Jamie doesn't call it a flying beastie. I was expecting that. It doesn't matter. I'm happy nonetheless. We get to see the rigs now. Oh man. It is a grainy pic, but A, it looks like they did a great job on the miniatures. Really, really great job. And B, in the recon, they've made a valiant effort at recreating the shot of the rigs from the helicopter. Yeah, nice one, loose cannon. Bravo. One of the rigs is covered in foam, so DJ hop onto it and trudge inside, assuming that they've been led into the weed creature's nerve center, but hang on, wasn't the foam dangerous a moment ago? If it's indeed as harmless as it seemed in the beginning when they just played with it on the beach like total buffoons, then why the shit were people so afraid of it as it entered Gas HQ or the Shade Angle? Ugh. Anyway, it's obvious. Oh, I said anyway again. It is obviously a trap. And we end the episode, and indeed get possibly one of my favorite screenshots of Doctor Who to date that even lingers behind the end credits of this episode, as Mitt Romney stands up in a room filled with foam all over his head, foam all over his shoulders, sorted, foam all over, even a globule of the stuff on his nose, like he's a 5-year-old taking a bath, and goes, "We've been waiting for you." Check out the screenshot on whobackwhen.com. All that's missing is a rubber ducky. End of episode 5, episode 6. The final episode of this serial. And let's start with a soundbite. This is beautiful. I'm assuming this is intact.
And here's the 6th and final episode of the Doctor Who adventure, Fury from the Deep.
Just gives you goosebumps, right? You can imagine the people sitting back in their armchairs, kids sitting cross-legged on the floor, inches from the television, all of them eagerly awaiting the climactic finale of this serial when it first aired back in 1968. My heart melts. Gorgeous stuff. Anyway, let's continue. Balls, I said anyway again. Mitt Romney speaks for the aliens as he explains that their new masters are indeed intent on taking over the world. And soon there will be no such thing as individual human bodies. Everybody's just going to be one massive entity. Ugh, gross. Blurg. They find Victoria won't stop screaming, which then sends Mitt Romney back in pain. Did I say obviously Doc and Jamie didn't fly the helicopter before? Well, now they do! With a desperately crying and complaining Victoria aboard, leaving the rig, and what ensues is it's part thrill ride as Doc can't really steer the thing, and part comedic interlude because he's clearly having so much fun, but which, regardless, like most scenes in this serial, lasts for far too long. Doc and Co get back and explain that the only way to stop the weed creature and in fact cure those infected by it is to make a lot of noise, and before we know it, he's recording Victoria screaming into a microphone so that they can amplify and loop it over the tannoy system, and at this point my note is, and I quote, no, for the love of all that is pure, please someone tell her to shut up. And Victoria's actually so useless that it takes her a moment to scream. She even says, "You can't scream just like that," or something along those lines. Not kidding. Doc has to give her a fucking pep talk. She screams into the mic, yada yada yada. Foam is now pouring into the compound, and Lieutenant Dangle is screaming, in a clip that we also have, to keep away from it, even though we already know that it's harmless. Well, I say that, but there's a gross seaweed creature inside the foam, so fair enough, Dangle, fair enough. Blam! It's technobabble time as Doc suddenly produces a device that will amplify Victoria's shrill voice into a, quote, sonic laser light beam. Let's cut to the kill. As annoying as the noise is, there's some great existing footage of them using speakers to defeat the weed thingy. It's a roaring success. All the peeps who were infected before are fine now, even Mrs. Selma Bouvier Dangle. Like, literally, there appear to be no casualties whatsoever. All that's missing now is the closer and the inevitable farewell for Victoria. Victoria says she wants to leave. They even negotiate lodgings for her. Does the serial end there? Nope. Why? Because just like the web planet, the serial refuses to end. That is, obviously the web planet is worse on almost every level. Here, we also just get this endless repetition of scenes, of lines, of plot elements, and it's practically nauseating at times. Ugh, blurg. Blurg! We even get another shitting control room scene. Mitt Romney asking if everything is okay, and apparently it's not, and we think, just for a moment, that perhaps part of the weed survived, and we're going to get, Matthew Lillard coming back from the dead, only to be shot in the head by what's-her-face, Nev Campbell. God damn it, I need to rewatch Scream soon. It's been a while. Great film. But nope, nada. Apparently there's just some maintenance left to be done. So, thank you guys for lingering on that for 2 minutes of airtime. Blurg, let's call it. No less than 4 goodbye scenes with Victoria, and 2 scenes of Doc and Jamie just regretting her departure in her absence, later. Doc and Jamie finally walk towards the sea, where, somewhere, the TARDIS is probably still floating, while Victoria stands on the beach, her bare legs to the camera, just to flash a bit of skin to the 1968 audience one more time before she leaves, Or rather, before they leave, because she's to stay behind, now apparently adopted by the Dangles, even though she's a goddamn adult. The TARDIS shoots up into the sky, which, by the way, holy shit, hold up. In the New Who Christmas episode with What's-Her-Face, the annoying one, Donna Noble, the Runaway Bride, that's what it is, we ended that with the TARDIS flying straight up, and I recall us complaining about it in our review, as in, it didn't dematerialize, it flew. But this is clearly a precedent, so... Vindicated, Runaway Bride. Bravo. Boom. Done. End of Fury of the Deep. Ugh. Fury from the Deep. Review. In the spirit of this review, I'm gonna just slip slide through this one in haste. I'll give it a few positives. Numero uno. Troughton is fantastic in this one. He looks like he's having so much fun in the helicopter, when he's investigating, when he's deducing, when he's explaining to Jamie what the pipes are about and all the equipment and so on and so forth. He's great. Loving Troughton in this one. Another positive, we've got another closed space. It's very Alien-esque, as in, you know, the movie Alien. It's very much like that. Very claustrophobic. And I'm really sorry to say this, JD. As much as... JD, by the way, for those of you who have never heard this podcast before and have, you know, spent 45 minutes wondering, what the fuck is this guy talking about? JD, fellow host of Who Back When, hates living plant sci-fi. Am I right in saying that, JD? I think I'm right in saying that. But as much as he hates that, I think I've come to the conclusion after having seen Seeds of Death, heard Hot House, watched Vagaplants in Dalek's Master Plan and Mission to the Unknown, I think I really like them. They are a super creepy concept in sci-fi, or in horror. It's more horror than sci-fi, and I love it. I think it's really, really cool. So, bonus points for that as well. Here are the negatives. A. Victoria. What the fuck? I mean, seriously, I'm glad that we've got rid of her because she has been steadily declining in my eyes. I get that they wanted to sort of throw her a bone before she left the show, like, oh wow, all of a sudden she's a professional lockpick. Oh wow, she managed to defeat the bad guy by being scared and completely by accident just screaming in its general direction. That does nothing for me. I just find her very annoying in general. I mean, it's not her fault, it's the way that the character's written. The whole, like, I don't know how to scream even until someone literally shouts at me to scream. And by the way, why was only her scream valid? Couldn't they all just scream into a microphone? Why did you need to solicit her services for that? Ugh, makes no sense. What else? Oh yeah, here's something that I didn't even make a note of, but that really ticked me off. This is an energy plant. I mean, they're siphoning gas from the sea. Why do they have some sort of weird futuristic sniper rifle with a CCTV scope? You know, it seems kind of disproportionate. What else? Pacing. I'll just stick to that. That's my very, very last comment for this before we hit the mini review. The pacing of this episode, or of this serial, was incredibly poor, in my view. There are so many plot points that are unnecessarily repeated. There are so many scenes that just stay for too long. I mean, they're just on screen way too long. We don't need to have circular conversations about things that don't even matter to the plot. We don't need all those, I can live without knowing why Selma Bouvier Dangle, or whatever her name was, Madge, why she even wanted to leave the compound in the first place. I'm okay with not knowing that, because presumably, or not presumably, but possibly, there was an explanation for that at some point, and it got cut because they had to make room for other content. But why didn't they cut these other bits, these extraneous scenes? Why did we need another scene of Mitt Romney returning to the control room just to see if everything was okay, and then just establishing, no, it's not okay, but I guess it will be, you know? There's no moral victory. There's nothing to be had from that material. So that's the main reason I am rating this down. I do like it though. I think it's suspenseful, and even though I think this 6-episode arc could easily have been cut down to 3 or 4, I'm gonna give this a 3.1.
Listener minis.
Okie dokie, we have one listener mini for this one, and it comes from Trenton Blaze. Hey Trenton, how are you doing? Trenton has sent in a maxi review. It's not so much a mini review. It is a maxi review, classic Trenton. And I think we've said this on the show before, because we can't spend too much time on them on the show. We're going to set a limit of 250 words. Send in 250 words and we will read out the whole thing, or up to 250 words. We will read out the whole thing on the show, at least until we get to the point of absolute stardom and we're receiving hundreds of them, at which point we'll probably have to truncate them even more. But if you want to send in something longer, such as, for example, Trenton Bless has done, then we will truncate it, we'll pick some of our favorite paragraphs, and we'll read out your rating, and you'll be able to read the review in its full glory on whobackwhen.com instead. So I'm going to jump into this review. Here we go. I've picked out a few of my favorite paragraphs. It's an awesome review, as per usual. Trenton goes, "You can find at least one great moment in every single Doctor Who story. Fury from the Deep features arguably the greatest number and biggest variety of scary scenes. Among them, the cadaverous, pop-eyed Quill unleashing his catastrophic halitosis, Van Lutyen's being sucked into the foamy bog, Maggie's terrifyingly long, slow walk into the waves, and Robson's 'Come in, Doctor, we've been waiting for you,' beckoning his nemesis into the bubbles like some Vocine-addicted Blofeld." It has to be said the science is a little, well, shaky. What really is the connection between natural resources, thrashing tendrils, heartbeats, mountains, and suds and gas breath? It's just like the famous Russell T Davies shopping list of ingredients, but in this case, we never get the satisfactory flowchart that connects them all. And you sense that beneath all the surging froth, there's a strident eco message, thrashing to get out. The RT featurette coinciding with episode 1 hinted that this was rich territory for just such treatments, but environmental concerns aren't overt in the way that they would be in, say, 1970s Inferno, in many ways a retread of Fury, or in 1973's The Green Death. I'm going to have to take your word for that, Trenton. I don't remember those two. Possibly haven't even seen them. I'm going to skip closer to the end. Trenton goes, "Well, it's going to get a 3.6 out of 5 from me. This is a wonderful serial, and it makes me super unhappy that this serial doesn't have any episodes in the archives." Well, I'm going to agree with you on that one. I would have loved to have seen more. As I said, there is recovered footage, or possibly, but I think it's actually not recovered. I think it's footage shot behind the scenes, so to speak. And you can find that on whobackwhen.com. Just search for Fury from the Deep and you'll find it there. I haven't seen it myself yet. That's how fresh this material is. Awesome review. Well done. Thank you very much for sending that in. Ladies and gentlemen, I've got 2 plugs for Trenton this time around. First off, if you want to give him a high five on Twitter, you can find him at Trenton Bless. That is Bless with 2 S's. But he also asked us to plug his YouTube channel. I had a look at it just now. It's fucking awesome, man. Tons of Doctor Who stuff. There's even a 1960s style Capaldi intro animation. Very, very cool stuff. I found it by simply searching for Trenton Bless on YouTube, but you may instead want to go to youtube.com/WrestleMania489. It's another one of his pseudonyms. Trenton, thanks very much for sending that in. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for this time. Next time, we will be doing the New Who episode instead, the one that you were expecting, namely Human Nature. That's N036, Human Nature. I had to look that up. After that, we're doing another classic serial. I believe it's going to be another solo one. We'll see. It's The Wheel in Space. Another legendary one. And eventually we'll get around to doing another audiobook review, in which case it will be The Scapegoat. JD is going to be back on the show super duper soon, so look forward to that. He'll be joining us, I'm very sure, not just for the audiobook reviews, but for New Who and Classic as well. Really looking forward to that. If you want to hit me up on Twitter, please do. High-five me. I will high-five you right back. I am @Ponk, and here's a soundbite of JD singing how you spell that.
Ponken, Ponkin.
Thanks, JD. Until the next time, be rad and excellent to each other. Ciao.
Kablamo! Did you enjoy the show? Then please do what the cosmos compels you to and spread the gospel of Who Back When. Tell your friends. Don't have any friends? No problemo. Tell some strangers. Like us on Facebook. That's facebook.com/Who Back When. All in one word. Are you on Google Plus? Then find us on Google Plus. That's plus Who Back When. And when you do, tell us why you're on Google Plus. Who Back When just got its very own Twitter account. No lie. So give us a follow. You guessed it. That's @Who Back When. All in one word. Check us out on SoundCloud, vote us up on Reddit, listen to us on Stitcher, and head on over to our website, whobackwhen.com, where you can leave a comment, submit a review of your own, and peruse our visual index of aliens, monsters, and more, which increases in kablamos with every episode. And lastly, give us a rating and review on iTunes. Not only would it make us super chuffed, and it really, really would, but as thanks, we will transmigrate your iTunes nom de plume into the credit list of trailers for fake Doctor Who audiobooks produced by Who Back When. Have a poke around our bonus episodes to make more sense of that. That's it. Rock on and be rad and excellent to each other. Catch your earballs in our next classic Who review, new Who review, or, still funny, audio Who review. Ciao.
Who Back When?